Hello again, this is UML Operator. All right, in this session, we're going to talk about building reusable patterns. These are things that you've created once and you've used successfully more than twice. So why keep repeating yourselves? Why keep repeating the effort that goes into building models or anything? Why not create a pattern that you can draw up on, reuse, and set yourself up for continuous progress? So let's create something that we can reuse. And we're going to start with a cover page. So this is our main landing page, and we want to build a cover page. Doesn't matter where you start. Let's minimize some of these tools here. Let's bring in a text box. We're going to put something in that in a moment. Let's bring in another text box, and let's bring in an image boundary. All right, so I do this in common elements. And as soon as I brought in this element right here called image, it automatically launches the image manager. And so we can come in here and we can pick any image that we want out of the library, and we're going to just pick this one, right? So we have an image up here. It could certainly be anything. It could have been a class element, because the image doesn't have anything underneath it. You can put some notes under here, but it doesn't have the power of a UML element where I can put a lot of intelligence, links, and things like that. So as I show you in a previous video on creating your own alternate images, we can come in here, right click on this one, go to appearance, select an alternate image or Control-Shift-W. Then we can come down here and pick the same image. They look the same, except this one has text under it. Let me hide that. I show you this in the other video. Hide the name. Now they look exactly the same. However, one, if I hit Alt-G, it is just a blank image. I can give it some meaningful metadata, but not much. This one is an actual element, and I could call it subscribe logo, and then under this, and then come up back up here, appearance, hide the name, and I could explain what the logo is. I could put some intelligence under this particular logo that I want brought up every time I bring in this cover page. I could put links to graphics library. I could put in all sorts of things, requirements for the logo, constraints, etc. It's a lot more power in bringing it this way. But I am going to just hit delete. Now, when I deleted it, I did not delete it from the Sparks browser. It's still right here. I just deleted it from the diagram, so we won't panic. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in some text here, and this is going to be my YouTube content, something like that, anything you want. And we might put in something like this if it's in a team repository and you're sharing with multiple players. I'm just going to double click. I could have typed in notes over here. Double click again. It brings up notes in a dialog box. This time I'm just going to click on this and type my notes over here as long as I have focus. And I'm simply going to put in welcome. Right? So I want to format these. I've shown you how to do this. You go to layout. We're going to go to the font, the style and font. And I'm going to choose Verdana, bold, and I'm going to give it a rather healthy header size in this. And this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Verdana again, bold again, but a little less aggressive on the font size, right? And maybe I want the color of this font to be something like a dark red. No, that's not good. Sorry, I'm not a color person. I'm not very creative. I'm going to go with blue. And on this one, I am going to go, come here. I'm going to go more colors, something in the blue spectrum. I mean, orange spectrum. See, I told you. That's not dark enough. Let's go back. Already spending too much time on the custom. Let me see here. Something like that. Let's try that. A little closer. But that's not what this video is about. So now I have something that I want to reuse, right? And you could certainly put in a lot more. We hit Control S and we saved. Now let's save this as a pattern. A couple more things. I want to align this to the top. So top, I want to align this to the bottom. Look, this is my alignment point. I want to align this one to the bottom. Again, in layout, you can use, you select two items. You can use select line to the bottom. You can do this align to the top. You can do this to align left, all that fun stuff, right? So I'm going to save again, and now we're going to save this as a pattern. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to Specialize tab. You learned this in that video on the Specialize tab. Publish Technology under the Technology panel, and Publish Diagram as Pattern. So the first time this comes up, you want to give it a category, all right? So typically I might put this under model patterns. The default is baseline patterns. I wish they had a feature to remember your group so you can select the drop-down box so you're not misspelling. And I'm just going to call this model patterns. Remember, I always start with 0.1 as my first version. And I want to call this pattern cover. Well, first off, the naming convention I use is MP for model pattern, underscore, and then I'm going to say cover page 2. And then the next thing in my convention is, when did I create the pattern? So today's date, I think, is the 26th. And then this is the file name that I want to use. So it's the pattern name I want to use. I'm going to go to where I want to save this. So I have a folder called patterns. I'm going to paste the name in here, and now I've got the destination and the name, and I can give it a description. So I can say this is a YouTube cover page, I don't know, just something like that. You can type anything you want in here, get as verbose as you want. And these are the elements that I want to save. I'm not going to mess around with any of these checkboxes, and I'm going to hit OK. So this pattern is now saved and ready for reuse. All right, so the next thing I want to do in this project is I want to bring this pattern in. So I go to resources in the project browser. You should have a resource tab right here. I right click on patterns. I can't right click here because I can delete the patterns. Right click here, then you get import pattern. I'm going to select where I just put the pattern. I'm going to hit open, and it's going to import it in and put it here as a reusable pattern for myself and others in this project team repository. All right, let me close this. Let me close this. Let me go back to project. And what I want to do is delete all of this that we just created. All right, so I'm feeling a little rambunctious and confident in myself. So I'm delete everything. And now this main page is back to where it was, right? So I am going to go to resources because I want to bring in this cover page. I can right click on it and I can hit add pattern to diagram and it'll bring it in, or I can drag and drop this in. Let's drag and drop it in, because right clicking and adding it will add it probably exactly where I want in the upper left corner of the diagram. But there you go. We just created a reusable cover page pattern. And we can reuse this in other projects, other folders, as we progress in whatever we're doing. In a previous video, and I'll include a link in this, is I created various patterns that I use for creating content, right? So I created a pattern of patterns. This pattern here is actually about 5 other patterns brought in under a diagram, which I saved as a pattern itself. So now what I can do with this pattern when I'm starting a particular video series, I can bring this in. It says it's version 01. It just says it's a pattern of patterns. It's bringing in all these elements for me, and I'm just going to hit OK. Right? So it brings it in. I dragged and dropped it exactly where I wanted, and I'm able to reuse this pattern every time I'm starting a new video. So you're able to create patterns for new projects. You might have an e-commerce pattern that you use for solution architecture. You want to bring that in. There's all sorts of things that you're going to want to create patterns for and reuse your labor across your projects, your new projects, go back to your old projects, and so on. A lot of reuse here. Now, again, this patterns are only available in this project. So if you want to share these patterns across other projects, you get into reference data. So you get into exporting the reference data, importing the reference data into those projects. I'll cover this a lot in various series going forward. More importantly, as we get into SQL and cloud, I am going to show and talk to you about reusable asset service, where you're able to put in your reference data as a reusable asset out in the cloud that you can have your projects and your team members use. So I hope this was helpful for you. Please comment down below, ask any further questions. I'll try to answer them when I can. And I look forward to talking to you more. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.